The 2024 NFL regular season is over. That means it is 2025 NFL draft season. Tom Downey here, breaking down my latest NFL mock draft, the first one after the regular season wraps up. Inclement weather means we're doing this one at home, but we'll have graphics. Shout out to the Chat Sports crew for helping us out here. Let's get to pick number one. Again, this based on the current 2025 NFL draft order. I've got the Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward. Now, in general, I don't love this quarterback class. It is a group that has very real concerns across the board. I don't think is very deep nor top heavy, frankly. But teams are always desperate for a quarterback, so I would not be surprised at all to see quarterbacks go early. There's already some buzz out there that Tennessee is high on Cam Ward, and if you're on board with the gunslinger nature of his play, the holding the ball too long, making some bad decisions, also getting some really good big plays, especially pushing the ball downfield, you're probably okay with that. So I think Ward or Shedeur Sanders, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, very real options for Tennessee at number one, since they have no quarterback plan in place. Now, if you are excited for the 2025 NFL offseason, simply hit that sub button right now. We will have a ton of NFL draft videos for you. We will have all the coverage you need, mock drafts, big boards, etc., etc. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. Number two on the board is Travis Hunter to the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns also very much in the quarterback market, with Deshaun Watson's Achilles having a setback of some capacity. Something tells me that reuniting Kevin Stefanski with Kirk Cousins as a short-term option might be a little bit more in play for Cleveland. So I'll go with the number one player in the class. That's Travis Hunter. He can play receiver. He can play corner. Browns get the best player on the board, and they punt on the quarterback decision moving forward. To number three, the New York Football Giants. I am a little bit worried about New York. Running it back with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, on one hand, makes some sense. On the other hand, you almost feel like you're pre-firing them, and they have to be ultra-aggressive. I do think Shedeur can have success in what Daboll wants to do on offense. I like Sanders a lot, actually. He's very accurate, not a great runner, doesn't have the overwhelming physical skill set you want. Certainly is not going to draw any comparisons to Josh Allen anytime soon. Isn't a great runner, but he can move around the pocket. He does hold the ball a little bit too long at times. That is a red flag. It was a little bit better this year in terms of some of the sacks he took. But he's accurate. He'll play on time. If you're going to have more of the Shanahan-style offense, which obviously Daboll does not run, I think Sanders is a good fit there. But again, neither Ward nor Sanders. I question what the true top-end ceiling of these guys are. I think they can be starting NFL quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. And that guy gets drafted pretty early in the end. But I do have some concerns about just how high their ceiling could potentially end up being. So who do you think should be the number one pick in the 2025 NFL Draft? This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's go to number four. And I went back and forth for the Patriots here on Kelvin Banks Jr. and McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I think it is a better free agency crop for wide receiver than it is offensive lineman. With all the money in the world to spend, I'll guess the Patriots sign a receiver and then draft the best offensive lineman on the board. I think that's Kelvin Banks out of Texas. We'll get to Will Campbell later on in today's mock draft. You got to protect the franchise and Drake May, and Banks would help do that. The Jags at number 5 here. I'll go Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. One of several Michigan players you'll see in this mock draft, by the way. Johnson was banged up this year, is a really talented outside corner. Has a chance to be the first defensive player taken, depending on where you count Travis Hunter. I labeled him as athlete for a reason, after all. Gives the Jags a long-term compliment alongside Tyson Campbell. The Raiders at number 6. I'll mention Drew Aller later, outside of round 1. They got to figure out the quarterback spot. I don't know what they're going to do there. Thought about Ashton Genty here. Lots of routes. They go, they need talent. They also need a number 1 wide receiver. And I think McMillan out of Arizona, who's got great size and moves way better than you think for a player of his size, really profiles well as a number 1 option in the NFL. The Jets at number 7, I will be honest, I didn't have a great answer for. Quarterback's such a glaringly obvious need. don't do something stupid with Garrett Wilson and keep him in. Then you don't need a receiver. They've invested in the O-line in recent years. I'll take, I think, the best player on the board. That's Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. He and Quinton Williams would be a dynamic duo on the interior for many years to come. Carolina at number 8. They need a pass rusher. Abdul Carter's there. This one just makes sense. Thought about Carter to the Jets, by the way, at number 7 as well. I think that's a real possibility, too. Carter, number 11, Penn State, you know who he's going to get compared to, obviously. Also played linebacker earlier in his career. Has shown some real growth, so he plays in the CFP semis and maybe beyond. Pass rush juice is there. It's going to get him drafted early. The Saints at number 9, we'll see if they're able to retain Chase Young. Cam Jordan can't play forever. I'll go Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. Just lock in your Trayvon Walker comparisons. It makes sense. He's still more of a developmental piece because he missed time this year. Traits are there, though. And in this draft class where it kind of feels like the top 5 guys are, for the most part, more top 10 picks, and the top 10 picks are more top 15, and the top 15 guys are more like late round 1 guys, that's going to get him drafted pretty early. Didn't mean to go 3 straight edges, but sometimes weird stuff happens in the NFL draft. James Pierce out of Tennessee to the Bears at number 10. You have Montez Sweat as one defensive end. Getting another piece in there to help get after the quarterback, I think, is a must for Chicago. Thought about offensive line as well here, and I did do offensive lineman Will Campbell to the San Francisco 49ers. Tough to see Mason Graham falling past this spot, by the way, at number 11. That'd be a really good fit for all parties involved. Campbell, I wonder if he's a guard. I do. I have some concerns there. I also think I've seen Shanahan get the most out of a not great offensive line, so I think he'd be able to get the most out of Will Campbell as well. That leaves the Dallas Cowboys then at number 12, and I'll slot in Ashton Jeanty here. We'll see if they bring back Rico Dowdle. Jeanty is, I think, going to be a consensus top 10 pick in this NFL draft, but figuring out where he goes, especially if the Raiders go with the receiver maybe instead of a running back, or even they go quarterback there, that could lead him to slide a little bit. If the Cowboys pass on him, Miami, Indy, Atlanta, probably Arizona don't need a running back. You could see him sliding closer to 20 than the number 10. But he's an awesome football player, and it's tough to not take the best player available, which I think is the case here for Jeanty and for the Dallas Cowboys. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets to find the best value. You can find the super deal, the amazing deal, the great deal, different tiers of tiers of how much money you are saving. It is curation to make it easier to find better value for tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, which maybe your team's out of the NFL playoff on, but you can always maybe say, hey, honey, let's go Sunday. Let's go to the theater instead. Earn some goodwill there. I always use the all-in pricing feature. It shows total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. So download the Game Time app today. Create your account. Redeem code CHATSPORTS ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS ChatSports for $20 off. Download Game Time today for last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. All right, back to pick 13. Malachi Starks, a safety out of Georgia. Even if the Dolphins retain Javon Holland, I think adding, again, a guy that might be the best player on the board here at number 13 and filling a need opposite Holland or to replace him if you cannot afford to retain him makes a lot of sense for Miami. Indianapolis, they're going to run it back with the current regime, getting a playmaker at tight end and continuing to give every reason possible for Anthony Richardson to not end up being a bust and be the guy long term. Makes sense. I love Tyler Warren's game. Tight end in the top 15 can be a bit dicey. I do acknowledge that. I do think Shane Steichen can get him involved, though, pretty heavily. The Falcons at 15. Let's go local boy, Jalen Walker, the linebacker / edge out of Georgia. I think will be at his best if he ends up being kind of a hybrid linebacker edge who does his best stuff working downhill. 3-4 outside linebacker pass rusher, I think, is going to be his best role. Let him go north. Don't ask him to go east-west a lot, I think, is how you maximize him. And the Falcons' pass rush has been pretty bad, so that's a logical fit there. Arizona, I'll go Derek Harmon out of Oregon here. Not my favorite player at 16. Again, you're kind of getting to the weird part of round one where the value's not quite what you want it to be, frankly. But he's a disruptive defensive tackle, and I think Arizona needs that. They don't have that guy. Thought about edge as well, but I think another defensive piece is what the Cardinals need right now. Number 17, Siobhan Revell, the cornerback out of ECU to the Bengals. I like Revell. If he had been healthy, I think we might have been talking about him being, a top 15 borderline lock, frankly. But he's coming off a earlier season injury, should be good to go. I don't know if Cam Taylor-Britt's going to come back to Cincinnati. He was really up and down this year. And if that's the case, with Dax Hill also coming off an injury, you got to get that organized. Seattle at 18. Cameron Williams is not, I don't think, the best, at least the consensus, best tackle left on the board here. That might be Josh Simmons, more on him in a little bit. But he plays right tackle for Texas. And he's got incredible traits that teams always covet. And I don't trust the Seahawks offensive line to stay healthy, especially Abe Lucas. So I'm going to slot in a new right tackle for them. Houston at 19, I don't think they're going to bring back Diggs. Unfortunately, Tank Dell can't stay healthy. So getting another wide receiver to pair with Nico Collins, I actually think is a need for Houston. And Luther Burden out of Missouri gives a yak generator that I think the Texans offense could use right now. He's not Deebo Samuel. You're not going to use him quite like Deebo Samuel has been used. But I do think he can be maximized, assuming Bobby Slowick's back as the OC, in that offense. Tampa, number 20, one of my favorite players in this year's draft, Jahdae Barron, the cornerback out of Texas, He's physical. He's got great ball skills. I don't know if he goes round one. The cornerback class is a little bit, there's a drop-off after Will Johnson, frankly, which is to be expected. But I like Barron's game a lot, and I think Tampa could use a player like him. They also have a need at corner. Who is your favorite player in the 2025 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Not best, just your favorite player in this year's class. Denver, number 21 here, Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, was hamstrung by a really bad passing offense for the Wolverines this year. He's a move tight end. Sean Payton loves having that type of player. They have a need at the spot. I like this pairing. Number 22, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. They obviously need more wide receiver help. I am curious how the George Pickens status plays out this year. And even with Pickens back, they need another player. Someone that can operate in the middle that isn't just a go ball, contested catch guy like Pickens and Mike Williams is. I think Egbuka fits that perfectly for Pittsburgh. The Rams at number 23, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I like his game. He probably would have been, again, a top 15, top 10 pick had he not suffered a knee injury in the mid part of the season. The Rams can maybe be a bit more patient at left tackle. They have options, but I don't love the options. Joe Noteboom's been a pretty big disappointment since getting paid, frankly. So I think Simmons to the Rams, I like that fit for what they want to do on offense. Bit of a gamble here at pick 24. Benjamin Morrison, who, preseason, the Notre Dame corner was in every single round one mock draft, pretty much viewed as a consensus top 15 pick. Was a little bit slow to start the year. Also got hurt. And I think there are real medical concerns right now around Benjamin Morrison. The talent is undoubtedly there as far as I'm concerned, even if he's not a top-end burner. But I do think there's medical red flags there that I think have to be vetted, so I'm going to asterisk this pick to an extent. But Green Bay needs another corner. We'll see about Jair Alexander and his own health moving forward, but they need another dude on defense. Maybe Morrison can be that guy. Chargers at pick 25 going Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan. Get that big boy in the middle, a guy Jim Harbaugh knows oh so well. And I was even going to try to put Grant earlier in this mock draft. I might have put him top 20 if I'd been able to find a good spot for him. He's a really great athlete, gifted athlete there. I like Grant and his play a lot. I think he's a good fit in L.A. Commanders, Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I think needs to shed a little bit of weight. But I can see Dan Quinn picturing, okay, this is my DeMarcus Lawrence. This is my, I've got Dorrance Armstrong. I'm still looking for another pass rusher. Scorton can help me out in that area. The Ravens, 27. They've always loved SEC players. Jahad Campbell. I do think they miss, Patrick Queen to an extent. Roquan Smith wasn't as good this year. The safety play, I think, was a factor in that, frankly. They've made some good adjustments there. Campbell is a really good football player. I think underrated, as much as you can have a Bama player be underrated in the modern-day NFL. Although Brian Branch was underrated with where he ended up going, so I guess it's possible. Campbell can blitz, he can cover, he can run stop. I think pure off-ball linebacker. I'm not sure I'd count Walker in that category out of Georgia. I think he's the number one off-ball linebacker in this class. The Eagles, number 28, Shamar Stewart. Eagles only take premium players, position-wise, tackles and corners and edges and receivers. Stewart is interesting. I am not as high on him as I've seen others on him. There's just a lack of production is a huge red flag for me. But again, the traits are there. And back end of round one, you'll gamble on the traits. Walter Nolan to the Buffalo Bills, number 29, part of a pretty good and deep defensive tackle class, at least in the first few rounds. Former 5-star has finally taken a step forward for Ole Miss. Pairing with that Oliver, let's have some fun. Minnesota, let's go back-to-back DTs here. Tyreek Williams out of Ohio State. I think they'd love to get Kenneth Grant, by the way. They'll settle for the Ohio State product, who has a chance to be the first Ohio State player taken when there should be a couple of guys that go in round one for the Buckeyes. Number 31, the Chiefs. Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. Kingsley Suamataia has not looked good in year one. It's a huge need for KC. I don't love mocking, back-to-back tackles in the first two rounds in consecutive years, but you got to get more talent, and then you got to fix that problem quickly because you're in a Super Bowl window, right? Then the Lions, Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall, who is a pass rusher, had a fantastic year for the Thundering Herd. Small school player, but I think could fit pretty well with what Dan Campbell likes to do. Constructive criticism is, of course, welcome. Grade this mock draft for me. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Before we sign off, some other notable NFL draft prospects I want to mention here. I don't think Drew Aller's going to go pro. Now, if Penn State goes to the CFP championship game and balls out, then hey, maybe something crazy happens. But I think NFL teams like him. He's got the size, the arm strength, decent mobility, just inconsistent as a passer. So we'll monitor that one for the time being. He went back knowing he probably wasn't going to be a round one pick, but a great run could change things. Elike Omenor, one of my favorite guys, underrated player at Stanford. It was just a bad passing offense there. Couple different offensive linemen, Jonas Avanaia, Donovan Jackson, Wyatt Millam, all guys playing tackle right now. Jackson was a guard who shifted outside and has played pretty well. I'll give him a lot of credit for that. They could be top 50 picks. A couple of pass rushers, Landon Jackson from Arkansas. Princely Uman-Mielen is one of my favorite guys out of Ole Miss. I think underrated developmental piece. Deion Walker from Kentucky was not as good this year, but he's got freakazoid size, and you don't find guys that are 6'6", 350 that move like he does. He also plays too tall at times. Trey Amos, transfer, is an underrated corner, and then Nick Amaniwari out of the safety from South Carolina. Going to have to answer questions on that bowl game departure, which is a pretty big red flag for teams, I think, with the way he handled it, allegedly. But a very gifted athlete, kind of in, I think, maybe more like the Jeremy Chin potential mold there.